There's a playground on every street in our town. If you ever found yourself driving down an old, deserted road where there's more dust than civilization, and you come across a welcome that reads, "Welcome to Heretheric, population 6,584. Then do not enter at any cost. This is my small town, and I am the mayor here. For the most part, life is simple in Heretheric. We're a farming community that grows everything we eat. We have done away with electronics and cars, not because we wanted to, but because we had to. And instead, we've built playgrounds on every street." Heretheric was established in the 1920s when a few people decided that they wanted to make a new life for themselves. Those people are irrelevant. However, what is relevant is that they found a piece of land that could be farmed and built 4 farms that all grew different vegetables or farmed different animals. Each farmer had a trade agreement with the other, which means that they almost never had to leave their farms and would get whatever they wanted from their neighbors, and the rest were sold to nearby towns and communities. Soon a gas station, a hotel, and a bunch of other amenities popped up around the farms because the large amount of people who would come to buy things, and over time, Heretheric was populated. By the 1950s, the town had reached a population of over 6,000, and that was when the welcome sign was put up. That was the last sign of real development that ever touched Heretheric. From there, everything went downhill, and it's all because of what one man did. James Steendon had moved to Heretheric a year before the 6-year-old Layla Lazem died to work as a delivery driver for one of the farmers. While there is no written history about the events that followed her death, people do talk about it quite loudly in the streets. They say that their parents always knew that James was a bad man, or that when they were younger, their parents had asked them to stay away from him because he would do bad things to them. Daily, you would hear more than a few people remark that James should be ashamed of himself for what he did to little Layla Lamington, and that poor little child was completely innocent in everything that happened. There was a time when I used to believe these stories. However, as I grew up, I realized it was mostly bullshit. James wasn't some kind of monster. In fact, he was completely innocent as Layla had been on that day. No one could have predicted what had happened. However, that's not something you can say out loud. On December the 24th of 1951, the day before Christmas, a snowstorm hit Heretheric. As far as we know, but don't speak about, Layla had been excited to open presents that day, so excited that she begged her parents to let her open one early, even though they protested at first. They eventually relented and let her do so. Layla immediately went for a large present and tore it open to reveal a new sled. Dressing up in her warmest clothes, she took the sled up a hill beside her house and climbed all the way up. There she mounted it and then slid down. Sadly, she underestimated how powerful it was and couldn't stop herself as she made her way into the middle of the street. At around the same time, James had picked up a delivery and was driving down that very street. Because of how the chains of events occurred, I assume that when he saw Layla in the middle of the street, he tried to sweep and stop. Unfortunately, because of the snow, the tar was sleek, and the van slid aside, hitting Layla. Barely awake, both James and Layla's parents loaded the little girl in the hospital van and rushed her to the located hospital. When she arrived, doctors remarked that she was in bad condition, and even though they did everything they could, she wouldn't make it through the night. That night, Layla's parents sat there by her side and begged for her to stay with them. However, a few minutes passed by at midnight, and she had died. Layla was an innocent child, and James was an innocent man. She never intended to put herself into that situation, and he never intended to hurt her. That was made clear when the police questioned him and then let him go. Layla's death was a traffic accident, and it should forever be remembered that she went too soon. Sadly for us, she never left. The next morning, James was found dead in his small apartment. The word "bad" was found written in crayon on his wall. Naturally, the police questioned Layla's parents in the situation. They kept them at the police station for a few hours, fully intending to let them go as soon as they had all the information they needed. However, they wouldn't get the chance. Layla's parents were found traumatized in the middle of the situation, with the bodies of dead officers all around them. Among the free-flowing blood and massacre, words in crayon were once again found: "Leave mommy and daddy alone." After the massacre, anyone who tried to flee our town also suffered the same fate. It became common knowledge that Layla was still around, doing things to people. People had started reporting seeing a child playing at night in the streets. She wasn't injured or covered in blood. She wasn't even angry or malicious. Instead, she was smiling and waving at people and laughing with joy. At the time, I was a young child, and during one of my first days of school, I had encountered with the true power that Layla had. Seemingly out of nowhere in the middle of class, our teacher had started confusulating. She screamed and was thrown down the room before flying on the floor and jerking once before she stopped moving forever. On the wall of the classroom and every other classroom with a dead teacher lying on the floor were words written in crayon: "No school." The message were received. Layla made the rules. However, those rules weren't malicious in any way, except obviously for the dead people. Instead, those rules were the deepest desires of a child. So whenever the words "more toys" were written on the streets in crayon, people had started to leave toys outside their homes as an offering to the child. Whenever the words "ice cream" was found on the street, people had left ice cream outside of their homes. And whenever the words "more playgrounds" were on the streets, we built a playground on every street. Our town remained isolated from the outside world, and we couldn't leave because, being in such a designated place, not a lot of people tried to enter. Thank God for that, because the people who tried to enter were found broken and dead, with the words "stranger danger" written in crayon on the roads. Layla is just a child. Even now, decades later, she's just a child. However, she's a spoiled child who may throw a tantrum if she doesn't get what she wants.